This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 91, Hang in There. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson. I am the host and I'm here in 818 Studios with my producer.
What is up, everybody? This is Dave Croft. Welcome to another episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey show 91, and we are titled Hang in There. You know, I'm not exactly sure what all that you're going to go into, but I feel like this is just for me. So the listener, I appreciate you tuning in, but her topic is just for me. So you guys could just come along for the ride. I don't know. That's the kind of week I've had so far. And
I know, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Man.
Everybody I talk to is
Man.
feeling that way. I don't know if it's election stuff, if it's all the stuff with the coronavirus. It's like every time you turn on the news, it only gets worse. And I think there's a lot of, because there's a lot of heightened fear, and it's really right now, there's like the subtext of everything seems to be fear rather than happiness and love and joy and peace, or like all is right with the world. The subtext seems to be,
Yeah, and I feel like as far as like politically, it's just going to snowball.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna get worse. I don't want to like speak that as truth, but
well, I mean, but that you're accurately describing how it feels.
yeah.
So, we always love to say there's an absolute and then there's what's happening now, right? And so our job as souls is to bring that absolute into the relative, right? That's what we try to do. But the reason I even did this title or am doing this topic, Hang in There, is because sometimes we get so we get over positive and we're not really just being with what is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the journey is hard. That's all there is to it. Sometimes the journey is hard. And especially if you're growing, it's really hard. Because as much as we talk about breaking old patterns, breaking out of old ways of thinking and being, actually doing that is a completely different thing than talking about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do I do this? How do I move into this next phase? How do I evolve? So I want to say to you, as Dave loves to say, I got you, fam.
I got you, fam.
Hang in there. Hang in there. And so what I know about working with people, and it's really interesting right now, I'm working with people all over the country, in corporations, in small businesses. I'm working directly in class with, people that teach college, people that have blue-collar jobs. And, all of us are in this together. All of us are wanting to dream big dreams. And everyone that I've spoken to lately is like, man, this is hard. So I want you to hear me say, hang in there, and to hear me say, when it's the hardest and you want to quit, that's just the time to keep going.
This could not be more appropriate. Just professionally, I've got a big project on deck, and my client is asking, I'm writing music, and as of this recording, I am 0 for 4, which means that I've submitted 4 completely new compositions to him.
Wow.
And he has rejected every single one of them.
Yes.
And so coming from, usually I one-shot them where you take one attempt and it's a home run, right? Or maybe, in a ground rule double, so to stretch my baseball metaphor. But man, I need to hang in there. I need to hear this because I am feeling so much like a failure right now.
Yeah, and I think, four no's just means you haven't found the right yes. I mean, it's all right. It's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So, but when you're feeling that, Dave, and I think you're describing exactly how all of us feel. We just want to go, oh, you know, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm using the polite
Right. I appreciate
version of that.
that.
Just forget it. I'm walking away. And recently I had a really tough personal growth session too, and it was like this is so hard in these because some of the areas I'm really trying to grow out of are so old and so archaic that they're so part of the fabric of who I am to like start to like separate from that feels almost impossible. It's like, how do I do that? I've thought this way for 50 years. So I'm with you in it, friends. I'm with you in it. But what I know is that if we stick with it and see it through, like I want to say, hang in there. What you get when you do hang in there is worth it.
The victory is worth the effort.
Yes, most definitely. And it's also interesting that each victory, my victory is going to look different than yours because we're working on two different things.
Sure.
But yes, the work is worth it. And the other piece that is going on for me right now in this personal work I'm doing, no one's going to know but me. It's not like I'm going to get a paycheck at the end of it.
Right.
The only one that's going to know is me. And it's a mandate from my soul to do it. So I think being real conscious about like what's yours to do, and like Dave, you're supposed to be a composer. You teach composing. It's what you do. So you have a skill and a gift that you've honed to the point that people pay you for your compositions. That's a pretty small, I was going to say gene pool. That's a pretty small group of people.
Right.
It's like I was talking to my friend Ken the other day, the B3 player, and he's like, there's not that many people who are professional B3 players anymore.
Right.
There's not a lot of people who are professional composers, but you are.
Yeah.
Right? So that you have the skill and the talent to do it. Right?
Yeah, I'm just in this groove with him, and we're not in sync.
Yep.
And I guess I'm not in the groove, and we're just absolute. And here's what's funny is when I sent this last submission, I was going to say, and if you don't like this one, then I can't help you. I wasn't going to say it like that.
I'm glad you didn't.
But so I removed that so that if he rejected this one, then I was going to politely say, I need to step away from this, maybe give it some time to marinate in my creative muse or something, but I didn't. I wanted to say, this is it, buddy. If you're not happy with this, then I can't help you. That's what I wanted to say, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't do that.
Yeah, well, and I think it's so funny, Dave, sometimes the setups you give me, because what I was going to talk about is taking responsibility for how we feel. And in all this, and you did, and rather than kind of blurt it all over somebody else, you were like, okay. And by the way, friends, just be careful if you do this. If you write the email, make sure you don't hit send.
That's right.
If you think it's something you might erase, but you've told me that on occasion you'll do that. You'll write the email and then to go, okay, I'm not going to send that.
Right. There's a catharsis to actually typing the words.
Yeah, I would say type it in a Word document if you're going to do that, not an email. Because the other day mine sent by accident.
Whoops.
Nothing bad. It wasn't bad. It was just an email that went before I was ready. Somehow I hit something I didn't realize. But so Dave was a perfect setup for taking responsibility for how you feel. So I've mentioned on the show very recently how some of the and I'll just say kids today. I'm really tired of millennials getting picked on, but kids today that are coming up through 25, I'll say, in general, there seems to be a lack of understanding of how to take responsibility for how you feel. In other words, we want to be rescued. There's this idea that we can't hold our feelings, that if we have a feeling, it needs to be fixed instantly, that somebody has to be there on the other end of the phone to talk us through it, that if we have a feeling, it means somebody else needs to change, not that we need to change our behavior or our approach, So there's really, and I see it, as I've said, I think I said in church recently, We see it in our world leaders. Our world leaders are acting like children. You can't take responsibility for the smallest things, right? So for us in our process, especially when we're hitting what feel like roadblocks, especially when we're hitting what feel like detours, on the journey, then we have to stop and go, okay, how do I feel about this? And am I taking personal responsibility for how I feel? Or am I making it somebody else's problem to figure out for me? Like, I don't get what you want. Okay, well, maybe it's me.
That's where I am with my
Exactly.
client. That's clearly I'm not understanding. And so by the fourth attempt, then maybe it's just not in the cards for me. Maybe it's just not supposed to happen right now. And so instead of just completely banging my head against a wall, take a step back and examine how am I missing him? Because this publisher is a professional. He's been in the industry 35 years. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, I think taking a step back is always good, breathing into it, seeing how you're approaching it, what's the perspective, I had a friend tell me today that I send really good emails. And I said, well, when I send a lengthy email, I've read it at least 15 times because I want to make sure when it goes out, it is really communicating what I want it to say. And even when I take my time, it's still easy to misconstrue emails. I've just learned that over the years. So all the more important to take a step, for all of us, take a step back and look at what is our emotional reality. Are we feeling worn out? Are we physically tired even? Sometimes I realize I feel defeated more simply when I haven't had the rest or recoup time that I need, that I can feel defeated quicker. It's like I go into, in psychology, what's called a collapse. It's just like, ugh, I can't, no, I don't want to deal with this. No, that's when I take a step back and say, okay, where am I at? Have I eaten? In 12-step, there's a thing called HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Don't make a decision if you're any one of those, right? So I got to take care of business, take responsible first for my emotional nature, and then for my body. Am I honoring where my body is? Is that why I feel like giving in and giving up? Why am I depleted? So I want you to be thinking about that as you're processing what I'm saying. Are you taking responsibility for your emotional nature? Are you taking responsibility for how you feel in your body? Now, when I say take responsibility for your emotional nature, I don't mean saying to somebody, this pisses me off. Why do you keep emailing me? That's still making it somebody else's problem.
Right. Why do you keep rejecting me?
Why do you keep rejecting me? Exactly. Taking emotional responsibility and having emotional safety is, I have a feeling. It may or may not be an appropriate time to share that feeling, but I'm going to look at what that feeling is so that I can see what's there for me. So I can see what's there for me. For instance, if we get a no, I'm just making this up, in a job situation, if we get some no, we think it's a real yes, and we get a no from somebody, well, we have a choice how we respond. If that hits a nerve, as we used to say, if it hits a trigger or a wound from childhood, well, man, we're going to be out of the gate reacting. But if we go, I wonder what this is about, and we go, God, I really seem to be elevated over this. So the goal is to get an objective, observer self involved in what's happening, so that we're not just in the emotion, we're actually feeling the emotion at the same time observing from this higher level. Now, the deeper question is, which is really you, the observer or the thing that's feeling? I mean, the answer is yes, both. But yeah. And the same thing with your body. When I think usually we're in reaction mode, and when we're feeling like we can't move forward, it's one of these things I'm saying. Either there's some emotional thing has been really touched, or we're just totally depleted. Like we feel like we've hit our head against the wall 4 or 5 times on something, and we don't want to move forward. But I'm saying to you, hang in there. Hang in there.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be in trouble because by the third rejection, I'm like, I'm really nervous, really, and so that's probably not going to yield my best results, because I'm
Right.
already starting from like a little wormy place of I hope he likes it.
Mm-hmm. But of course, it's natural because
Yeah.
you want somebody to be able to buy your work. But yeah, it's like, um, I had somebody recently say to me, um, I know that when you say something that's important, it's covered in God. Okay. So it's like whatever we're doing, if we just cover it in God, it's going to be heard however the person needs to hear it.
Mm.
It's almost like, what's the energy we're sending it with? What's the energy we're saying it with?
Yeah, and that's where emails kind of get lost in translation
It is.
because it's hard to send God energy through an email. Not impossible, I would imagine, but you have
Exactly.
to work really hard to overcome the technology.
Well, yeah, yes. I think it's the most ineffective communication tool that ever was. But
Our week long scheduling.
yes, exactly. 20 emails to do it. We could do in person in 3 minutes, but
Yep.
that's fine.
Yep.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I'm
Yep.
just kidding.
That's funny.
Through gritted teeth. So um somehow I want you to feel like as you hear this, my goal is for you to be encouraged because I think spiritually sometimes we make up a story that says if I'm not in bliss, I must be doing it wrong.
Mm.
If I'm not going, there is one presence, one power. I am the isness of the allness of the oneness. And Dave, as you laugh, I just know that the isness and the allness of the oneness is coming through that to bless my isness, allness, and oneness. And when you laugh, I'm actually laughing with you, even if I feel like crap. So there's this idea that if life is hard or we hit a block we don't expect, like getting something rejected 4 times, you don't expect that.
Mhm.
That doesn't usually happen, right? So immediately it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? Or oh, what's happening? So I just want to encourage you to know that it's part of the journey. You don't have to try to make it spiritual. Having a human feeling is spiritual. It's like there's some way in which I want us to be able to make the authentic human experience spiritual. Like there's not God over here and then there's me. Me feeling grief and me feeling love is exactly the same thing as me feeling. Me hitting a home run or striking out, it's okay. It's all part of the human experience. And I think we are too much, I'll speak for myself, in judgment of ourselves and our own process. Like we did it wrong, or what's somebody going to think, or I feel bad about this, or whatever. I've realized, in the last 24 hours, I have seen I am way too hard on myself. It's so tempting because the expectations of me as a minister, as a spiritual leader, as a presenter, as a speaker are so high. So it's really easy to get pulled into people's idea about what I'm supposed to be instead of just what or who I am, So there's a way in which I hope you're hearing this that I want to encourage you. Yes, I want you to know that having feelings of things being difficult is normal. And just because things are difficult doesn't mean it gives you permission to have a temper tantrum and to make everybody around you wrong.
To be honest, that's kind of where I am right now. I'm not in a wormy, I'm terrible. I'm more like, dude, you are straight up wrong. So get out of my face. That's where I am right now.
Yeah.
I because this is so fresh. This literally happened right before we were recorded. I was going to close my email and then bing, the email comes in and I just read the first couple of lines and I'm like,
Yeah.
And so right now, I'm much more in the you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm right.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at, making it his fault.
Right. Well, and I think that's always the first step because nobody likes to feel wrong.
Yeah.
Right? In psychology, that's called a manic defense. Yeah, we all do it, Um, uh, it happened to me one time getting feedback on a review that was very surprising. And I've gotten it on every review since. So now I just laugh when I see it.
Uh,
It's something like people want more information when you ask them to do things or something like that. And the first time I saw that, I was like, what does that mean? Am I, wah, 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 wah? And so now I just see it and go, yeah, I know it's on every review. And evidently this is who I am. And I'm going to say, if you need more, let me know.
yeah, I tell you what, man, getting unbiased feedback from people you trust,
Uh-huh.
that can be amazing, and it can be really tough.
Yes.
I have to give student course evaluations every month at
Yes.
Full Sail, and
hmm
for the most part, they're glowing. But every now and then, you'll get, and not just from like a disgruntled
Oh, yes.
student who never showed up or whatever, but a real nugget that will stick on you, and you're like, wow, that was a real blind spot that I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was doing.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yes, and on my online classes now, I do surveys as well, and I find them very enlightening. And actually, I found my last couple times I've had to do a review, I really learned a lot, and
Hmm.
it was great. I've gotten to the point, I guess, that I know that just because there's a review, it's not about my value as a
That's
person.
right. That is so right.
It's simply feedback. So.
And for me, I have to make sure it doesn't become a complex.
Well, yes. I mean, exactly. So I think anytime we get feedback like that, it can trigger a complex.
Yeah.
So the way my teacher told me, she said it's called constellating the complex. In other words, everything comes together in a way that it triggers this complex. So everything gets constellated and it looks awfully familiar. And suddenly
Hmm.
you're off and running as if, you're 7 years old disappointing your parents again or whatever.
Right, right.
So yes, that's definitely what happens. Well, clearly we have a lot to talk about on this topic because it's already, the show's already half over.
Right?
I want to come back though and talk just a little more right after this break.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
And welcome back. We're glad you're with us. I always think that during the break, yes, you're listening to the break and the announcements, but my guess is you're kind of thinking about the first half of what we're talking about. And today, specifically, it's about just hang in there, man. Hang in there. And we've talked a little bit about taking responsibility for your feelings, also really listening to what the body might be telling you. And I want to go a little bit even deeper into that. Because we talk a lot about taking responsibility for your feelings, but I want to finish that because we said taking responsibility for your feelings is not saying to somebody else, I feel pissed, you need to change. We said taking responsibility for our feelings means we are aware of how we feel, and rather than going outward, what we do is we sit with it. So I want you to hear me say, when you have a feeling, sit with it. Don't ask anybody to take it away. Don't expect somebody to fix it because they cannot. Just sit with that feeling. That's number one. Sit with it. Second aspect of dealing with the feeling really is, what's here for me? If something has been triggered from childhood, if something has been constellated that you were not expecting, then you say, I wonder what this growth is for me. I wonder what this growth is for me. And then there might be a little, potential growth there for you. And so often when we're doing emotional work, we think, gosh, I might have to do this again. It seems like I've been working on this issue. These family of origin issues, that began, some of them pre-verbal, we work with our whole lives. But as we work with them, they get less and less obvious, right, in our lives. And so the work, Dave, you're doing around this, I'm sure, is way more subtle than it would have been 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you probably would have said, I'm making that up.
Right.
But so yeah, we want to take a step back. And then I also mentioned trying to observe the situation from a higher place. And I had a teacher in ministerial school, Robert Brummett. He's written several books, really, really incredible spiritual man. And he talked to us a lot. I don't know if he knows how much it impacted me, but he talked a lot about the observer self. Excuse me. And it's something that I return to over and over. I've talked about it, view from a mountaintop. And usually I'm talking about a larger situation. Well, sometimes the observer, you're really, rather than even observing the other person, you're actually observing yourself. It's yourself observing yourself, which helps get more objective. It helps give you a little space from the situation. And then when you can get objective, you see the feeling for what it is, which is something that's going to pass. As I like to say, the best 5 words in the Bible, and it came to pass. Feelings come and they go. Feelings come and they go. And feelings are windows into the soul. They're not who we are. They're windows into the soul. They show us our place that needs healing. They show us our place of strength as well. I had a situation recently where I was really able to stay in my own feeling reality where in the past I would not have been able to. So that was a strength. And as I observed it, I thought, oh boy, even a year ago, I would have been right in that. But it was like I could see what the energy was wanting to do in me, and I could stop it. So none of us is successful at this 100% of the time, but the goal is to begin to be more objective so we can sense what it is that's driving these feelings. What is it that is driving these behaviors? And then that's when the real healing can happen. And I'm saying all this, I've said hang in there. Why would any of this be happening in the first place but to help you grow? It's the thing I always talk about. Grow, prosper, evolve. But to do that, something has to change. So if we are living in this old idea, if something happens, this complex gets constellated and we want to go in this old behavior and we don't, that's a major win. So Dave, when you did not email that back, that's actually a major win for the soul. Major. Right? Because you took responsibility and it's like, okay, I really want to send this, but I won't. All right. That's a win. So now it's just getting to, okay, now how do I want to respond? So we get way up above and we go, man, what's Dave and this guy doing? Or I don't know if it's a guy, but what's this situation about? Am I not hearing him? Is what I'm doing, a different energy than he's asking? Where am I in this? Because we always want to make the other person wrong instead of saying, where am I in this?
Right.
So I know I'm speaking a lot about this emotional piece, but I see this over and over and over every day, all the time.
And it's interesting that you mentioned emotion because as a composer, and I hate to keep pulling it kind of back towards me, but
no, it helps people.
As a composer, one of the things that I do is communicate emotion. And so what I keep missing in his opinion is I'm not capturing that emotion. And so music is such a personal thing, and it can feel really personal when you
Mhm.
get rejected. And so it could be that I'm just not the right guy for this cue. It
Mm.
could be that my creative muse just I'm just not the guy to write this piece of music for this placement.
Okay, yes. So I'm going to go there with you just for a
Okay.
second. All right. So let's say that's true. Okay, let me back up. So what we do, when we're reacting in fear, it's because we think we can't deal with what's going to happen if what we fear happens, right? So the fear is he's not going to like it, and he's not going to. I'm making this up. Not going to pay you for the gig,
Right.
right?
Or I won't get placement on TV or
Or you won't
whatever.
get placement on TV. Okay, that's the fear. So if that fear is running your show, then you can't be okay with it really not being supposed to be, right? Because you're so busy trying to act so this fear quiets down. It's like the fear's running it rather than, wow, okay, what are the options? The options are, and again, Dave, I'm making this up. You
No,
can
you're
tell me
good.
if this is
You're
right.
pretty spot on so far.
Is number one, I'm not meant to do this. And then you have to ask yourself, can I live with that? Can I? Can I live with the fact that I may not be the guy for this? Or option two, I haven't quite heard him right for what he wants. Can I live with that? Or what I'm writing is kick ass stuff and he's not able to see that this is exactly what's needed. So when you decide you can live with all three of those, then the fear goes away and then you can move forward and write the tune. Because you're not trying to it's almost like feeding the beast, you know? When anytime there's like this inner fear that's driving something, it's like every time we're acting and the fear is still going on, it's like we're feeding the beast trying to quiet down. But the problem is, the more we feed it, the more it wants.
Right. And the bigger it gets and
And the
the
bigger it
angrier
gets.
it gets.
And it's like I'm seeing this big, like, big green something,
Right.
like an Incredible Hulk on steroids or something
Right.
that you start to appease. And so that's what I mean about getting the bigger, the objective view. So then that inner fear and quiets. But so usually the fear is kind of this little subliminal kind of subtext that we don't even notice because we've always had it, and it's always like, okay, you do what people want, you do the good thing, and you get paid for the job. I mean, so we all have that. So, oh my God, they don't like it. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So that's somehow in this kind of unconscious way, the fear's now running the composition instead of your brilliance, which you are brilliant at composition. I mean, I'm saying that, not
I
you.
appreciate
Right,
that.
right. So we all do that in communication. We all do it in relationship. But if we really knew what was driving what we were saying and doing, we would probably just first deal with that, then come in as our authentic self. And I hear this all the time. I think I mentioned recently that I've been working so much, it seems to be, with people in really intense corporate environments. And everybody is so busy trying to CYA, as we like to say, that they're not even interested in the quality of the work. Just, will somebody like it, and will I not get in trouble if I did it wrong?
Right.
So, and that's the fear, running everything. So, um, so sometimes in this medium, I feel like I'm a little limited because I can't feel back what you're feeling, but I'm feeling it from Dave. So I'm gonna keep going this direction.
Right on.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going this
I'm
direction.
with you.
So the second aspect of really, being able to hang in there and getting this objective view, I think I said, check in with your body. So there's this great book. My sister recommends it a lot. It's called Eat Right for Your Type. And there are all these different blood types. And for some people, really, eating a certain way is really good. For other people, it's really bad. For some people, doing intermittent fasting really works, and for some people, it doesn't work at all. For some people, eating a lot of red meat works. For others, it's all vegetarian. And some of that is even linked to your blood type. It's also linked to your culture and history. It's even
Yeah, is this the Eat Right for Your Type individualized blood type diet solution? That
yes,
okay,
yes,
four
yes,
blood types, four diets. Okay,
yes. I just wanted to mention that book because sometimes we are depleting ourselves simply by the way we're eating or not eating. And especially if we're stress eating, then that can be really harmful to our growth and certainly to our overall mood and even our endurance.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if you're doing a lot of stress eating, which of course means chips and sugar, which are one and the same basically.
Yeah.
Chips, sugar, alcohol, or smoking, obviously drugs, but are not good. But it's important to look at those things because when we're busy, especially if we get bad news, we always go for sugar. Sugar's mama. Help, help. So
Yep.
we always go for that sugar. So you might think about, notice, again, get objective. What are you going to when you're feeling this depleted way?
Mm.
Again, we want to become more and more conscious. And I've worked on my diet and stuff for years, and I still seems like every week I'm learning something new about my body and what my body needs. And as I age, my body needs something different than it did when it was 30. I mean, I'm now over 50, so my body needs something different now than it did 20 years ago. But even the way I eat now is changing. So that sounds like a little thing, but when you think about it, your body fuels everything you're going to do. So if it's depleted and you're reaching for food that gives you like quick energy, but then depletes you, you're dealing with blood sugar issues, you're dealing with, this feeling of being over hungry, that you're never going to be productive if you're dealing with that. So it's just another area to think about that in this podcast, we don't talk about a lot because it's largely spiritual, but there is a huge physical component. Are you exercising? Are you moving your body? Many of you know as our guests, our regular listeners, that I do a Tai Chi practice. Well, I now practice Tai Chi in some form every day of the week on my own, at home. It's just a few moments in the morning of stretching and doing the form to really wake up my body and, become balanced. And because Tai Chi is such a balancing practice, it helps me throughout my day. So if I'm going throughout my day and if I am feeling depleted, there's one thing I do. First thing I do is I stop and breathe. I check in with my feelings, as I mentioned. The third thing is, do I need to eat? How is my body? And sometimes it's, have I gotten up for a while? Like lately, I've been super focused on the computer, super focused in my office, or teaching online, or recording a podcast, or working with a publisher, or traveling in a plane, or giving presentations. 4 states in 4 weeks is a lot, right? So it's like, okay, so where am I? And then I can adjust and everything, once I get a perspective, everything is much, much better. Hang in there. Remember that just because you've gotten no 1, 2, 3, even 4 times, that doesn't mean it's not yours to do. Now, discerning that piece, as Dave is in right now, Dave's in the hot seat because he's having a discerning time
Yep.
to figure out what's next. But you see how we're talking through it. We're not making Dave right or wrong. We're not making the other person right or wrong. We're saying, could I live with this? And if the answer is yes, then the fear goes away.
Mm.
Dave will have to answer the other pieces about food and sleep and all of those
Well,
things.
that's definitely something to think about. I've talked about my weight loss journey here on the show, and I'm down over 50 pounds doing intermittent fasting.
Yeah,
and,
good for
and
you.
morning walks and rucking and all that kind of stuff. So that definitely gives me something to think about. And even as you were talking, I was like, I wonder what's changed. If there's something, I know I'm stalled out a little bit, and so I'm really thinking about that. But yeah, that gives me a lot to think about.
Well, the journey is so complex. I mean, in one way, the journey's simple in that, we are here to grow as a soul. We know to do that. We focus our attention on God. We know that. We meditate, we breathe, we do wonderful spiritual practices. But it's complex in that the journey is happening while life is happening. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go do my soul work over here, and then the next 23 hours, I'm just going to go do life. Life is the journey.
Right.
And so the journey is up and down and sideways. And if you watch The Good Place, it's, what do they say? It's Jeremy Bearimy. It's like this.
Yes.
It's like this. So, and that's how the journey is. That's how the journey is. So we want to not get discouraged, even in moments where we feel a little defeated. We want to just hang in there. And we know that God will guide us in the moment when there's question, when there's confusion, when there's concern. But we first have to get quiet, get objective to what's happening in our thought, feeling, reality, and then finally in our body, even considering things about diet, about rest, because all those are part of the spirit, soul, body,
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Yes, we often talk so much about the soul, but we are spirit, soul, and body. Those are three interrelated parts into one whole that makes up you as a being. So I want to encourage you, friend, to be conscious and to not get too discouraged. We want you to hang in there because we're in there with you, right? Like Dave says, we got you, fam.
Got you, fam.
We got you, fam. So be encouraged. The work is difficult and times even, I'm going to use this word, arduous. At times it's very arduous, but it is worth the effort. Because as we learn, as we grow, as we evolve through these life situations, we are a soul on purpose. So we thank you for joining us as always. It is always our blessing to be able to serve you and be with you on the show. And we do hold you in prayer every day for God's highest and best in your life. Thank you for joining us. Many blessings.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Arlene Meyer, Kathy and Terry, Marcia Mott, Nora Miles, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Susanna Garcia, Shayla Mount, Dorothy Moore, Aggie Payton, Taryn Tucker, and Anna Evans. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.